In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how you can calculate your taxes and do your federal tax return with the help of AI. So I'm going to demonstrate using two platforms, ChatGPT and another one called Quadratic, which is basically a spreadsheet type platform. It's more technical. So anyway, here goes. Now, before I made the inquiries to the AI platforms, I created an Excel spreadsheet document as shown here with all the input information that I thought would be necessary for it to answer the questions. So I basically divided the information up into forms, into worksheets based on which form they would normally appear on. So the form name is down here in the tab names. And on each worksheet, I have the form name and the tax year up at the top and all the necessary input information. Now, this input information includes questions and answers and important numbers that are not calculated numbers within the form. So, for example, these are just input numbers 6,000 and 21,786, and you don't need to calculate things like total income or adjusted gross income because that'll be those will be some of the things that it will figure out itself. So only input numbers, and again that means on Schedule C you include gross sales and all your expenses, but you don't need to state net profit because it'll figure that out once again. So after you have the spreadsheet put together, you want to save it and upload it into the AI platforms as part of your inquiries. So let's check that process out. Now here's my actual ChatGPT interaction. So I uploaded the file that you just saw, and here's my initial inquiry saying, give me the information for tax year 2024, blah, blah, blah. Calculate self-employment tax and total federal income tax owed. And if you want this program to work correctly, you have to go down here and select the plus sign and select deep research. That's the way to make sure it's going to do it correctly. Otherwise, it could make errors. And that's what happened in my first try here. I did not select deep research, and sure enough, it gave me a couple of errors in here, which I'm not going to go through specifically, but there were errors in it. And I tried asking it again, still gave the same errors. I tried correcting it with correct numbers, it still didn't understand. So if you scroll down a little further, here's where I said recalculate the original tax inquiry using deep research, and I selected the deep research option down here, and it gave me this. It asked me to confirm a few things, which I did, and then here's what it told me next. It said it's thinking. For about 11 minutes it was thinking, and then it gave me all of this. So this whole next section was totally correct. It gave me the federal tax calculation, self-employment tax, adjusted gross income was correct, taxable income with the correct standard deduction. This time it had gotten that wrong before I used deep research, but now it's correct, and there is no taxable income, correct. Federal income tax owed, 0, correct. Total tax liability, of course, you just take the income tax owed and add the self-employment tax to it. So that's correct. And it did ask me for the tax payments and withholdings, which I gave it just a little bit before this. And it used that to determine an actual refund owed. So that's correct too. So this whole section was correct after I used deep research. Okay, and then just for fun, I tried a couple of other inquiries after that. I tried what federal tax forms must be completed. It thought about that a little more, asked me to confirm a few things, and then it gave me a list, Form 1040, Schedule 1, Schedule 2, Schedule C, Schedule SE, and then it actually gave me Schedule D and Form 8949, which those two are not correct, but it's because there was a piece of information that I forgot to give the platform, which I corrected down below. But anyway, it also gave Form 8995, the QBI deduction form, and 8812 for dependents, and that was the list. So then I said the other gains, losses, which by the way was from Schedule 1 of minus 290, comes entirely from the sale of a business vehicle. So before that it had assumed that was a capital loss, but now I clarified as shown here. And this is the corrected list. So Form 1040 SR, that should have been an SR before, which it was actually in there. And Schedule 1, Schedule C, Schedule SE, Schedule 2, and this time there's 4797, which is sales of business property. So that's what should have been in the first list if it had all the information it needed. And now it has taken away Schedule D and Form 8949. Okay, and then again 8812 for the dependents. Forms not required. Final list in short form here, it gave it to me again. Now it's saying that you don't need, this time it says you don't need Form 8995 QBI, but I think you should file it. The tax software programs usually say that that form should be filed. They usually fill out that form if you have Schedule C, so that should probably be in there. It was in the first list that ChatGPT gave me, but not in this one. I don't know why it changed it. So you still gotta sort of check ChatGPT. You can't just blindly trust it. And then I tried one more inquiry. I'm not really going to get into that in this video. You can try as many follow-up inquiries as you want. It recommends them after you ask each one. So anyway, on to the next platform. So this is my Quadratic account page. This is the main files page, and this is definitely the more technical platform compared to ChatGPT. So if we want to get back to our file that we created, we want to upload it, got to click import up here, go to local file, and you get a dialog window where you can pick your file, and I'm just going to randomly pick one. So after it opens, you can see it basically opened the spreadsheet inside the Quadratic window. So that's right here. See everything. So that's how you upload your file, and then you can work with that. You can make the inquiries over here on the bottom left. So anyway, to get back out of there, you can click back to the main file page, which is right here. Now you're back to this, and I'm going to demonstrate two tax returns that I used in this platform. One of them, it got totally correct, flawlessly, and the other one had a little bit of problems. So this is the one that it got correct. This is a different one than the one that I just did in ChatGPT. Okay, so I just opened it. Here's the spreadsheet. This table on the right is actually not something I did. It's something that Quadratic put there as part of its answer. Everything in green is the stuff that I had in the spreadsheet originally. So see, there's something from Schedule C and something from 1040 that was already in here that I needed to be the inputs. Okay, so now I'm going to open the chat that I had from before. So here's the original inquiry that I made. Is substantially the same as the one I made in ChatGPT, asking to calculate self-employment tax and total federal income tax owed based on the information in the spreadsheet. It answered by telling me what it was doing. This program actually writes Python code, so that's what this line is telling me right here. You can actually click here and see the code if you feel like looking into that. I'm going to close it back. And here's everything else it came up with. Schedule C results, the main numbers, gross receipts, expenses, net profit, self-employment tax, stepping through those calculations. Those are all correct. And so federal income tax calculations, it pulled the right standard deduction for this tax return, and everything else is good to go. So down here it shows the total federal income tax, or total federal tax owed, which is the income tax plus the self-employment tax, which is basically only self-employment tax for this return as well. And over here is just the table form of the summary of all those numbers. So everything it knew how to do all this. I didn't tell it 92.35% or 15.3%. It came up with those itself. So it basically did this one flawlessly. Now I'm going to get back out of this one and go to the one it had problems with. which happened to be the same one that I demonstrated in ChatGPT a few minutes ago. So this is the same one. This is the table it created, which ultimately ended up correct after I corrected it. And here are all the other tabs, basically the 3 tabs we saw from the ChatGPT file. And I'm going to reopen this chat. This was my original inquiry, substantially the same. It got something wrong. It was omitting one of the expenses, because it was the expense in Schedule C that's called taxes and licenses. It was getting confused by that, apparently, because it had the word taxes in it. It was excluding it. I changed that to licenses, just licenses, and it still had the problem. It couldn't figure it out, couldn't correct itself. So I ultimately had to correct it by writing here and telling it what it's supposed to do. And then I also had to correct something else. It was using the wrong threshold amounts for the taxable Social Security amount. A lot of the platforms were having that problem, but I had to tell it the numbers to use. It was using the wrong numbers. So actually, after that, I told it to recalculate based on these corrections, and it recalculated. It took them into account. I don't know if it researched these things on its own or if it just took my word exactly as I wrote it, but it ended up correct. These are the correct numbers, 15,740 instead of 15,804, and everything else is correct. Correct threshold numbers here, 25,000 and 34,000. The correct standard deduction amount for this filing status, and everything else is correct. So, and then you can scroll down and see the rest of the table. There it is. It's all good to go. So after I corrected it, it got it right. So this one, this platform can give you a good, correct performance, or it could have problems depending on what you tell it. Maybe if you're doing Schedule C, you want to call this licenses from the outset. I think it was having a hard time changing that once it had done it one time. So anyway, that's Quadratic for you. It's more technical, and it's probably better to use ChatGPT if you want to be sure you're being error-free. So that's that. And I also tried this tax inquiry in 2 other platforms, FormulaBot and GPT-XL. Those 2 produce substantial errors. So anyway, a lot of these platforms tend to have trouble with taxes, although I tested them in some other areas, and they do quite well in certain other areas, like calculating complex statistics questions for large data sets and producing useful charts and graphs and things like that. So they are still very useful for certain things, but they have trouble with taxes in a lot of cases. So the most common tax mistakes that they're making too are omitting that taxes and licenses line in the Schedule C because they think it's a tax line. They think they should ignore it, or they're pulling the wrong standard deduction for some reason, or they're miscalculating the taxable Social Security amount. Or in some cases they're not even recognizing they need to calculate that, and they're just calling the entire Social Security amount taxable. So if you want to avoid all those kinds of mistakes, probably the best way to go to get the best results is to go back to ChatGPT, create your file with as much input information as possible, upload it, make your simple inquiry like I've done here. Go down here and select the plus and select deep research, and then submit your inquiry, and then answer any follow-up questions it has after that, and try to make sure read through its answer, make sure it's saying everything right. If it got something wrong, you can correct it with additional information. So anyway, that's that. Hope you found this video helpful. I did include a lot of information in this one. Most of my future videos are probably going to be a little shorter and more simplified. And I'll be making more videos on a variety of math-related, financial, and technical topics. So if that kind of stuff interests you, don't forget to subscribe or follow me wherever you see this video. And that's all for now.